Alright, I thought I'd do a quick video on Aleister Crowley, the self-proclaimed deepest, darkest, most evil man that's ever lived on the face of the earth. That's right, Aleister Crowley. I thought it'd be fitting if I put a hourglass in the back here. So the sand is moving as I speak. So here's the story. The ruins of the famous Satanist Aleister Crowley's cursed demonic house on Loch Ness is for sale. The Loch Ness, Loch just means lake. So Lake Ness. That's right, you can buy the ruins of the Boleskine House where self-proclaimed wickedest man in the world carried out black magic rituals there for many years. The BBC reports that the Boleskine House, former home of occultist Aleister Crowley and later owned by Led Zeppelin guitarist Jimmy Page, is for sale. After a fire tore through the house in 2015, though, there isn't a lot left. The selling agent, Galbraiths, said echoes of its former splendor are all that remain of Boleskine House, but there is an opportunity to restore it into an outstanding property. Aleister Crowley purchased Boleskine for the purpose of conducting a ritual that required very specific architecture. The first essential is a house in a more or less secluded situation, Crowley explained. There should be a door opening in the north, from the room of which you make your oratory. Outside this door, you construct a terrace covered with fine river sand. This ends in a lodge where the evil spirits will congregate. And Boleskine was the perfect location. The demons and evil forces had congregated around me so thickly that they were shutting off the light, Crowley wrote of his experiments there. It was a comforting situation. There could be no more doubt of the efficiency of the operation. There is no doubt that the evil forces still abound, as a film crew experienced unexplained phenomena there while filming a documentary about Crowley. At Boleskine, Crowley was said to have summoned over 115 spirits, including Lucifer himself. The occultist also embarked on a complicated 6-month power-giving black magic ceremony called Abra Malin. The rites of Abra Malin, the mage, require prior months of preparation, celibacy, and abstinence from alcohol, and include, among much else, the summoning of the 12 kings and dukes of hell. Crowley's subsequent orgastic ceremonies and sacraments are too disgusting to detail here, but they involve chanting, sodomy, and the sacrifice of terrified cats and goats to produce adrenochrome, which was ingested by Crowley and his dark followers. Interestingly enough, the Boleskine Manor estate already had a bizarre reputation long before the great beast, Aleister Crowley, conducted his dark rituals there. The Boleskine Church, or Kirk, once stood on the very land of Scotland's Loch Ness, where the manor is now. If the land is cursed, it may have begun with this church, and it certainly had. According to the very old historical writings, an early minister of this parish had to fend off a pesky dark wizard who was reanimating the dead. In an account of the Church of Boleskine, Alan Dawson wrote that Thomas Houston, born 1648, died in 1705, was noted as having to contend with a notorious dark wizard called the Maker of Circles, who had raised the dead bodies in the churchyard, and Thomas had to make haste to lay them to rest again. Sometime later, the church is said to have burned to the ground during a sermon, killing everyone inside. When a bishop visited the old church in 1762, he wrote that it was the poorest church of any kind I ever looked upon, as it is also the pastor's home. And also is the pastor's home was also very poorly built or whatever. The church graveyard is quite open without any walls, where you see plenty of human bones above ground, and the floor of the church is overspread with them. Dogs are seen carrying away the human bones in their teeth. Now this is the land that Boleskine House, the Crowley house, was built on. So it was already cursed before that house was built. Soon after, Colonel Archibald Fraser built Boleskine House on the charred remains of the church. He inherited the land from his brother Simon Fraser, who was the last person in Britain to be executed by beheading, and is believed to still haunt the area to this day. One of the most famous stories is that deep at night, always around the witching hour of midnight, the head of Simon, who was beheaded for treason, can be heard rolling around the floor at Boleskine. That's got to be scary. The house remained in the Fraser family until 1899, when they sold it to then 23-year-old Aleister Crowley. So Aleister Crowley bought the house in 1899 when he was 23 years old. Several tragedies took place during his time there. Well, really? The house remained in the Fraser family. Okay, I read that. The Black Magician also took pleasure in the suffering that his sinister practices apparently brought to local villagers. Crowley bragged about how an employee of his Boleskine estate got drunk one night after 20 years of abstinence and attempted to kill his wife and children. The family of Crowley's lodge keeper, Hugh Gillis, also suffered a series of tragedies. First, his 10-year-old daughter died suddenly at her school desk, and a year later, his 15-month-old son died of convulsions on his mother's knee. Crowley sold Boleskine House in 1913, and the estate was then purchased by Major Edward Grant. In 1960, the housekeeper, 78-year-old Anna McLaren, had a premonition of a suicide. She had been alone picking vegetables in the yard when she heard a gunshot blast from the house. She rushed back into the house, but there was no one there. Several days later, though, at about the same time of day, she found her boss dead. Major Edward Grant killed himself with a shotgun in Crowley's former bedroom. I went in and found him with most of his head blown off, she recalled. The family dog was playing with a bone. Police told me later the bone was part of his skull. After the major's death, the home was sold to a young couple. The wife was blind, and within a few months, her husband just disappeared, never to be found. She then moved out after a few years, and the estate was again available for sale. In 1969, Kenneth Anger, an experimental filmmaker with an interest in the occult, learned that the house was on the market and rented it for a few months. During that time, he witnessed a heavy painting float right off the wall and come to rest on the floor. When Jimmy Page heard about this, he bought the house in 1970. Jimmy Page was a collector of Crowley memorabilia who had read a lot about Crowley and was fascinated by his ideas. At the time Page bought the house, it was in a state of decay, but he felt it would be a good atmosphere in which to write songs, as it would take him closer to Satan and his demons. Satan had always inspired he and Jimmy while writing songs for Led Zeppelin. In a 1975 Rolling Stone interview, the interviewer said, "You live in Aleister Crowley's home." Crowley was a Satanist poet and magician at the turn of the century. It was notorious for his black magic rites. Page was fascinated by Crowley, but he was interested in the house for the rest of its earlier dark, demonic history as well. Strange things have happened in that house long before Crowley, Page responded in an interview. The dark vibes were already there. Crowley just intensified them. Page, who secretly spent a lot of time there, is mostly silent about his experiences, but he did ask his childhood friend, Malcolm Dent, to move in and restore it. Now, if you want to check my other videos, I do have another Led Zeppelin video where there is a story about the drummer who was sacrificed. I can't remember his name, but the Led Zeppelin drummer that died was actually sacrificed to Satan. And if you look at my other videos, there is proof of that there. You'll have to search my other videos for Led Zeppelin, and then you can watch that other video. But of course, Jimmy Page is going to talk about that. All right, so strange things happen. All right, Page, who secretly spent a lot of time there, is mostly silent. Okay, Jimmy Page caught me at a time. Okay, so this is Malcolm Dent. He said, Jimmy Page caught me at a time in my life when I wasn't doing a great deal and asked me to come up and help him restore the place. He wanted me to do it as he knew I could keep secrets. Dent lived at Boleskine for a long time and raised his family there. All the main rooms look out across the lake, and you're 300 feet up, so you have some dramatic views, he said. We loved living there. It was a great house to raise children, and they loved it there in spite of its history and in spite of the peculiar happenings that went on there. Dent and his family were well-known Satanists and dark magicians. Dent told the story of a cute girl who stayed for a night of debauchery with Jimmy Page, and she awoke, and he was awakened by her screaming that she had just been attacked by some kind of devil. Another night, Dent was roused by what sounded like a wild animal clawing and snorting just outside his bedroom door. He dared not open it till daybreak. In the morning, there was nothing there, but whatever was there was pure evil. Praise Satan. Dent said that doors would suddenly spring open as if someone was running through them and then slam in the middle of the night. The rugs would be found piled up in the following morning. We used to just say it was the spirit of the mischievous Aleister Crowley doing his thing, Dent said. Another story that Dent says everyone loves involves 7 chairs Page bought from the Café Royal in London. Jimmy got those chairs specifically because one of them had Aleister Crowley's name on it, Dent said. Each of the chairs belonged to a famous person and had a nameplate on the back and front. Marie Lloyd, Billy Butlin, James Agate, Rudolph Valentino, William Orpin, and Jacob Epstein. Dent says Crowley's chair was always placed at the head of the table, but after the chairs underwent repairs, they kept finding Crowley's chair switched with Marie Lloyd's. The kids couldn't have done it, and we didn't know why this was happening, Dent said. Then I realized the guy who did the repairs didn't know which plaque went with what chair and hadn't put them on the right ones. But according to Dent, this actually happened. The chairs moved themselves, and that was just an excuse. But according to Dent, the strangest thing about the house is the visitors. I had them from every corner of the world, he said. A lot of them were nutters. A lot of them were downright dangerous lunatics. They will still be turning up today. The house is on the map as an occult center, and Crowley's legacy will never die. Jimmy Page sold Boleskine to Ronald and Annette McGillivray in 1992. The couple turned it into a guest house. They despised any mention of Crowley and insisted nothing unusual ever happened there, although under whispers everyone knew otherwise. Locals say the McGillivrays tried to erase Crowley's presence, whitewashing the interior and covering the stone floor with carpet to hide the magical symbols painted there. Their efforts failed as the symbols would always reappear as the paint dried. While filming a year 2000 BBC documentary called The Other Loch Ness Monster, a priest and minister blessed the project, and clerics were called in to keep the crew safe, just in case. Still, they experienced their share of unexplained supernatural phenomena. The film crew working on the BBC documentary were attacked by a plague of beetles, suffered repeated equipment failures, and all experienced strangely similar nightmares about Crowley. Photos taken at the graveyard just down the hill, where there was a direct tunnel from the house, were always ruined by a strange circular halo of fog, according to producer Cary Grant. Actually, it's Gary Grant. It wasn't lens flare or a fault in the camera. It was genuinely an out-of-this-world event, he said. I've never seen anything like it before. In other incidents, lights exploded, fuses burned out, and camera stands fell over during a late-night shoot in the graveyard, showering the crew in glass and injuring some. One crew member's phone kept ringing intermittently. Another's alarm clock would go off at the same time every day. The McGillivrays sold Boleskine in 2002 to a Dutch couple who used it as a vacation home. They were allegedly not there on December 23, 2015, when a fire scorched Boleskine, leaving nothing but the external walls by the time the firefighters arrived. At approximately 6:66 p.m. on the 23rd of December 2015, a motorist on the A82 road reported flames and smoke coming from the Boleskine House. When the fire crews arrived, it was estimated 60% of the building had already been incinerated, with flames rising up to 20 feet high. The firefighters concentrated on the west wing of the house as the rest of the building had already been severely damaged. Dutch owners had gone shopping and returned to find the house ablaze. The fire was thought to have started in the kitchen. However, nobody was believed to be in the house at the time of the fire, and there were no casualties. Today, the burned-out ruins are all that remain of the Boleskine House, the shell of Aleister Crowley's unholy, satanic, demonic home, including all the demons and spirits that still linger there, and 23 acres of cursed land on Loch Ness can be yours right now for $666,000. That's right. So if you want to buy it, it's for sale. This the end. That's the end of the story. What do you think of Aleister Crowley? What do you think of his legacy? I want to go ahead and put your comments in about what you think about demonic Aleister Crowley and Jimmy Page and all this. Go ahead and put your comments in. Please like this video. Subscribe if you haven't yet. Please do that. And share it out there in social media. Everybody should get a chance to buy this great house where you'll buy it and have so much fun. Go out there and just pitch a tent and have some fun out there. All right, so I'm going to be signing off, and I hope everybody's good. Have a great day. Take care. We're going to fly away.